Hey folks, it's Marvin Cash, the host of The Articulate Fly, and we're back with another Central Virginia fishing report with Ethan Martin of TaleTellers Fly Shop. How you doing, Ethan?
I'm doing great today. How you doing?
I'm just trying to stay cool. How about you?
Yeah, about the same.
Yeah, I mean, so looking at your weather, I would say it's probably slightly warmer than usual because you're kind of in the mid or upper 90s, it looks like, for the next week to 10 days with, unfortunately, probably not enough rain to make a difference.
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, we had record highs, was it 2 days ago, for that day. So it's like upper 90s, 95, somewhere around there, and we haven't had rain, or at least any, like you said, rain that has done anything to the river. So everything is looking pretty low. We could definitely use a good storm here or there.
So I guess that means, right, that if trout fishing exists at all, you better get up early and you better hike high up, right?
Yeah, that's really the ticket. You got to wait for the kind of the perfect conditions as it gets really toasty. Because with lower water, I mean, that's automatically going to make it a lot more difficult. And what you're looking for is the temperatures that are sub 70. Really, I mean, if you get up in the morning and you take a stream temp and you haven't hiked at all and it's like 65, then you might as well not even waste your time. Because, the fish that you catch, you'll end up killing them. But like last week, I went up to a little stream because we got a pretty good shot of rain. And so I went up to a stream, not like too crazy early, and but I took a temperature, and the reading was like 58, 57, somewhere around there. And then by noon, it had only gone up 4 degrees. So it is possible, but you got to be willing to hike, and you got to be willing to have some patience and kind of wait for those prime conditions, and not push it too much because there's plenty of different ways that you can, catch something with fins. It's just waiting or catching something other than brook trout or that sort of thing, or go to a spring creek. We do have several of those in Virginia or streams that are influenced by creeks. You just got to do your research, or you can call us and we can kind of point you in the right direction too.
Yeah, absolutely. And that kind of reminds me, we have got a question from Matt. He wanted to know what your preferred terrestrials are when the stars align and you get to go fish for trout.
So in Virginia and in our section of streams, I end up fishing more beetles and ants than hoppers or anything like that. And my personal favorite, I guess, pattern that I use the most would be like a bionic ant. It's got some foam in it. And I use that because it's kind of looks a little bit like anything. I mean, I know in the name it says ant, but that doesn't mean that it's limited to only looking like an ant. And it has a really good plop factor. And then I like rubber legs on things. So that's one of the better patterns that I like. I just have a lot of confidence in it. So if I know it's tempting to want to throw, these giant hoppers and that sort of stuff. But in Virginia and our neck of the woods, there are other streams, that are through cow fields, that sort of stuff, that you can use hoppers just fine. It would probably be a lot smaller than what you would expect, but I would stick to using more beetles and ants, and you'll find more success that way.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite beetle pattern?
So I like this one. It's called oh shoot, what's the name of that thing? Basically, it's like you take deer hair, black deer hair, and peacock, and it's a really simple pattern. So you just make a peacock body with a deer hair top, and then kind of deer hair little legs. And I do like a little tiny post that's like pink, so I can see it. And I really like that thing on flat, calm water. It has a good little plop, and it looks super buggy. So it's 3 ingredients as well. It's just peacock and black deer hair and a little bit of pink parapost or orange parapost or something like that. That's probably the one that I use the most when I'm on one of those spring creeks and I want to fish a terrestrial, because it's typically on the spring creeks, it's a lot smoother water. So you don't want something that's like going to crazy slap down the surface, even though that will attract trout a lot of times. But I like to be able to control that. So when I plop it down, I want it to plop down hard when I want it to, if that makes sense. If you have a pattern that's super heavy that every single time it's always going to hit the water with extreme force, then, that you can't control it as much. So I would rather have something that's a little bit on the lighter side, that if I want it to plop down, I can use a shorter leader and make it do that, or just be a little bit more forceful with my cast.
No, it makes a lot of sense. I guess you're really talking about those beetles that are like lacquered or epoxied.
Yeah, and those things do catch fish, yeah.
Yeah, but it's like dropping a BB on the water. It goes kerplop.
And even this time of the year, smallmouth will. So like we did a pretty good float yesterday, and with the water being as low as it is, like the smallmouth even get pretty spooky. And there were several times where, it was kind of like sight fishing conditions. We could see the smallmouth. You'd make your cast out to it, and if you put that thing right on its head, of course, every fish is different, but the fish would bolt the second that thing slapped on its noggin. So even doing that, when the water gets low and clear, you've just got to be a little more, I guess, conscious about your presentation.
Got it. And speaking of a smallmouth, how is the smallmouth fishing right now? I'd imagine it's probably getting better from a topwater perspective, but probably getting hurt, right? Because your water's getting lower and clear a little bit faster than you'd like.
Yeah, so that's you pretty much hit it on the head. The time of the day is going to impact a lot. So like beginning of the day or evening, you'll see more success. And really what that boils down to is just that direct sunlight and then clarity of water. If you can make long casts, this is one of the funny things about bass fishing, at least that I've heard people say, is, people come in and say bass are dumb. You don't have to care about this, that, or the other because they're so stupid. And it's a little funny because this is one of the times of the year where your accuracy will directly correlate with how successful you are. Because if you're casting to that shade line, like when it's, midday, you haven't caught a fish in an hour or 2 hours, and you're casting like a foot off the shade line, like you're not actually getting it up under those trees, you're not going to catch fish, or near as many fish anyway. What it all boils down to is midday, can you cast, get it up underneath that tree or that overhang branch on the shade side? Because that's where those fish are going to be, the big fish are going to be moving to, because they don't want that direct sunlight on their eyes. They don't, like I said before, I think they don't have eyelids. So when it's super bright out and it's really low in clear conditions, they don't want to have that blazing sun, burning through them, because every eagle and osprey can see them as well. So they know where to go. And then of course that's where a lot of the food is going to be too, because like you said, we've been seeing more and more cicadas. They're pretty much hatching incredibly consistency. So you can take a cicada fly. Again, this is the annual cicadas. It's not the 17-year. Those are pretty much, to my knowledge, they're done for in Virginia. So you're looking for the annual cicadas, which have the white bottom, olive sort of top, and plop those at the edge of the river, and hopefully you will eventually find a fish that's willing to eat it.
Yeah, absolutely. And the interesting thing too, we were talking, I guess I was lucky enough to be able to drop by the shop on Saturday, that, you're starting to see a little bit of a geographic difference, even within Central Virginia, kind of given kind of differences in kind of elevation and water temperature, where you're seeing kind of on the lower James that the fish are starting to kind of turn off in the middle of the day.
Yep. And it's not like that everywhere. But it is. So, for example, the differences between like the New River, I know you talked to Matt Riley a good bit, and then the James, the water clarity, the temperature, all that stuff affects how the bass are going to respond. And so when we have days and days and days in a row that are over 90 degrees, we don't have any lake or anything like that can cool down the water other than nights. But last night, it's 9:00 p.m. and it was 88 degrees here. So it's still not really going to cool down the James so much when the outside air temperature is 88 degrees. It'll cool it some because you don't have direct sunlight, but it's hot.
Yeah, and it's there's no two ways about it. It's definitely hot, and folks, we love questions on the articulate fly. If you'll send them to us, probably the easiest way to get them to us is to send us a DM on our Facebook or Instagram page, and if we use your question, I'll send you some articulate fly swag, and you're going to get entered into a drawing for some cool stuff from the shop at the end of the season. Gosh, say that 3 times fast. Ethan, before I let you hop, why don't you let folks know where they can find you and find you on the internet too, and drop by and get their fly fishing gear fix?
Yeah, of course. The easiest way is just to come into the shop. We're at 920 Commerce Street in downtown Lynchburg. We're about a block from the James in Lynchburg. So if you got a question about this section of the river, we know it pretty well since we, live here. And if you have a product or something like that you have questions about, of course, you can always email us or call us, or most of the products that we have in the store you can find at our website, which is TaleTellersVA.com. Like you're telling a tale and you're in Virginia. So it's that's a really easy way to see what we got. And if you have a question about anything, you can either shoot us an Instagram message or email, phone call, or come by. So we got all that good stuff.
Absolutely. And folks, stay cool and get out there and catch a few. Tight lines, everybody. Tight lines, Ethan.
Tight line.